back because Addison loves the TRPR event. We go to all of them.
Oh, really?
It's psychotic. Like what last like Friday, and there's like no one there. It was just me and like, hey.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Hey, what was said that made me think of Unite to Ignite. We are going to combine those activities with our Roosevelt September.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Cool.
Because instead of having two separate, and each we get people there, but it's not on.
Yeah.
So, well, we're ready.
Okay. All right, it is 7 o'clock, and I will call to order a regularly scheduled meeting of the Willd-Area Board of Education. Get all that right? We are a little today, so we'll have two of our folks missing. But if you would all please take a moment, silence cell phones, not your pagers, because it's not 1995. And rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Joe, would you please call roll?
Monica Johnson?
Here.
Amanda Proctor?
Here.
Steve Casano?
Here.
Jeremy Scott is excused. Michael Wales is excused.
Thank you. All right. We need to approve our agenda for tonight.
And there's no additions or revisions.
I'm going to motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We have an agenda. Do we have any comments on?
We're going to find out
Agenda
in just
items.
a second.
No? She just called me sir. All right, we will move on to staff and student celebrations and recognitions.
Well, Vice President Sassano, tonight we have champions in this room that we want to acknowledge and honor. And they are coming here from Milliken Middle School. And in honor of them, Assistant Principal Athletic Director, Mr. Curtis is here. And I wanted him to share just a couple things about the dynamic students and coaches in this room.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're super excited to have everyone here and be able to shout you all out, particularly state qualifiers. But I mean, the whole team is just a fantastic group of guys and gals. So it's really cool to be able to expand on the co-ed nature of wrestling. We're super proud of having young men and women wrestle in our program. Very talented from the athletes who have been wrestling for years to first year wrestling. You still see how well coached they are and how the technique is there, and they're just did a phenomenal job. And, again, huge shout out to our incredible coaches who really are invested in these athletes and staying out, a few hours past teaching and teaching them further and mentoring and just really doing a great job of getting them where they need to be and getting them to that championship level. So they all do a fantastic job. Side piece on not just the talent, but just love to see the family, the brotherhood, and like I said, even sisterhood of all the athletes. They eat together at lunch and just seeing them hang out fun. It goes beyond the mats. It goes into the classroom, it goes into the lunchroom. So super proud of this team, and Roosevelt's getting an amazing group coming up. So
Thank you so much, Mr. Curtis. Now, if you'll stay with me for just a minute in case I don't names. What we like to do when we have state championship team here is the board members would like to acknowledge you. And I'm going to say your name. You're going to come up and I'm going to give you a certificate that President Wales have signed. And then the board members want to shake your hands. And then you can't leave right away because I want to take all your pictures. Everybody's been acknowledged, okay? All righty, well, let's see, is Malachi Martin here?
yeah.
Yes, come on up. So, now, this is a code moment. Right there, okay? And okay, what grade are you in? 8. First place.
Yep.
Congratulations. How many years have you been wrestling?
I believe.
Oh, that way?
Thank you. Thank you.
How about Michael Garcia? You here? Michael, congratulations. What grade are you in? 8. This is first place. What weight?
180.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Was that your hardest wrestle championship? Not really. Congratulations. Congratulations. It's Rocky Hofschneider. Yeah. Did I say your last name okay?
Yep.
With all those letters in it. This is second place state rep. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What did you wrestle?
140s.
Only wrestlers can you ask their weight.
Thank you for not asking mine. Kason Lopez. Second place, what weight? You most people don't go above. Congratulations. Kyle Young. Second place, and if does your mother say Joseph Kyle Young? No? Congratulations on your second place. Jacobo Rosales. Congratulations. I know you didn't want to say tell me anything. Cash Long. How about Thomas Dunn? Okay, please. 2023. How about somebody, we got somebody up there. Urban Hofschneider. Amana Castan. Oh, I messed up on it. Castaneda. Okay. State qualifier. Andrew Hufford. Congratulations, Andrew, for making it to state. Braylon Brake. Braylon, congratulations.
Thank you.
State qualifier. What grade are you in?
8.
Okay. Brody Kitzman. Congratulations. Clayton Sanchez. How about Clayton Turnbull? I've given you more than one award, haven't I? What don't you do? Where is Cole Nunley? Congratulations on qualifying for state. That's huge. Where is Dylan Long? Okay. Dominic White. Gavin Ballinger Weisbrod. How about Jackson Wheelock? Caleb Wells? And Merrick Young is not here either. Okay, is Joan Turnbull here? Joan, I am not worthy. You are the outstanding manager of this, of all of these wrestlers. What was the most fun and the hardest part? You're not. Thank you for being the manager. Aaliyah Hernandez. Are you going to tell me what was the toughest part and what was the easiest?
Giving them their seats.
Is that both the toughest and easiest?
Is Coach Garcia in here? Yes. Thank you very much. I don't know how long you have been coaching for us, but coaching wrestling's a labor of love and a huge time commitment. Thank you. Where is Coach Kitzman? Thank you so much for your commitment, your time. I know we don't pay you enough, and I appreciate your dedication. Thank you. Coach Nunley. How long have you been coaching wrestling?
This is my 4th year as the head coach of Milligan, but some of these kids I've been coaching of wrestling since they were 5. Special group.
And thank you. Your passion and your commitment and your dedication to this special. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, wrestlers and coaches and managers, come on up. Somebody gotta be on the bottom row. Okay, good.
That's fine.
I'm good. Okay.
Wherever.
Can we break up a little bit in the middle gate with the five tiebreakers? Maybe the ones behind you. Yes. And then you in the back.
You gotta switch back.
You gotta do like, put your hands on your knees, lean forward just a little bit, gentlemen.
All your great faces.
Thank you. Okay, and Coach Nunley,
Yes,
there was an award for 2 meetings in a row by you.
Yes. I wasn't here begging for money not that long.
Thank you, Coach. And middle schoolers, I know you probably have homework to do, so you are excused.
Except for this one,
I
we
know.
keep her to cheer us
I
on.
was gonna say, I think we need to acknowledge the leader in the front row.
Yeah, she's
Awesome. How old is she?
She's 40.
She was so delightful. Wasn't that? That's fun.
That was awesome.
That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael, oh, gets on, I'll tell you later.
All right, any other
That,
celebrations? I'm
President Susano, that concludes celebration tonight.
not sure what to do with an empty room.
I know.
Okay, we will move on then to reports, comments from board members.
Well, mine might be a little bit early, but I'm excited because tomorrow I get to go to the Jump Into Summer event that will be held over at TRPR and to represent the library there, but also to see all students and be able to showcase all of the great activities that our students can do across our district to stay active and stay engaged during our summer months. So I'm really excited for that. That will be happening tomorrow. So get everyone out there that can go out and see us at PR.
So I had a chance to walk through MES's building. Dr. Curl took me through there and gave me the 15-minute nickel tour to accommodate my schedule, which I appreciate. Lots happening, of course. I think with that middle section being under construction, it feels a lot different because I've been in the building under construction when it was kind of the outside of the building. But when you're in the middle of it, it's like, holy fruit holies, there's a lot of stuff happening right here, right? And it's right in the middle of the building, so I'm sure everybody can hear it. So again, it was a good reminder of how accommodating the whole building's been with the process. And I really think that Heart Center, I think she called it the Heart or something like that, will be, once it's open, having all of the very common services and layers, like, I can't remember what she called it. I wish I could remember, like the teacher, they were trying to figure out a good name, teacher kind of Wusa room. I don't remember what they were going to call it. I think they're still looking for a good
I
name,
think
but
you just named it for
the
them.
Wusa room. But I think that's really
name.
exciting because it's all kind of in the middle of the building, so you're still connected to everything, I guess, except for early learning, but having the library connect them into the building is really exciting. And when I went through it, I also got to go to the art show, and I thought they were really creative, and I can imagine how hard it would be to be in a new building, and then you got to like hang stuff on the wall. Like, man, I want to do that, but I thought they were really creative. They hung from the ceiling the little like metally things so that the artwork hung, and I actually thought it presentation wise because you could fit so much more artwork vertically going through there versus if you stored them all on the walls anyway. And I was really impressed. I don't know who it was, wherever it was, but the little nook in the area with shelves was fantastic too. It's kind of a nice built-in thing. And then I went to KQA Wellness Night. KQA usually does a big evening event a year around a different topic, and this year was wellness. I arrived late to that. I was at MES, but my middle schooler friend were running around like crazy ladies with red faces because they were doing all the activities from one of the building to the other. And I had members of the community stop me and say that how much they were enjoying the night. A lot of different dance studios in Greeley in the area that have kids dance there. The Palm team came and danced. And I said that it was great to showcase our kids doing activities that aren't school activities necessarily, except for Palms, but giving them a place to showcase to their peers was really nice. So I had one really busy evening, but all you.
I don't have a ton actually. I attended negotiations last week. Is that last week? Which we'll hear more about in our executives later tonight. But I'm trying to think. I was able to attend the FBLA end of the year awards at RHS last night. It was a lot of fun to see those getting ready for nationals. There's how many are going to nationals? I don't remember, but they have folks that showed some of their presentations and that kind of stuff. It was really funny what those kids are getting ready for. And that, I didn't know this, that is the biggest FBLA chapter, I think, in the state. Wow. So they have a lot of kids in an FBLA at Roosevelt, so it was a lot of fun. And then there was one other thing. Oh, I updated you all last time about the PRE playground and kind of what the ask is going to be and where we might be able to find more funds for that. And we may have found a source of funding potentially. We're working with them now through the Weld Trust. So I know it's easy to do when you can have the conversations at home at night, because my wife is the one leading that charge at PRE right now. But they will, I think, apply for a grant through the Welds, and we'll see where that goes. But that might be one way we can find some funds with that project up to snuff. It is, like I said last time, I didn't realize the condition of that thing's in, and it needs to be replaced. So find some funding for it. And that's, I think, really it for me.
Bounce a question,
Sure.
to Mr. Everest, on the World Trust grant, what kind of reporting requirements are on those? I don't want that, that's my preclusion, it's just I'm thinking of.
They typically, the district has received a couple, I mean, I don't know kind of what funding level they're thinking about at PRE. I mean, I know that there's cost like grants.
Like grants are expensive, yeah.
We've gotten, considerably smaller ones from Weld Trust, and the reporting requirements aren't at all.
And I should say this is very preliminary. Like, the application hasn't been filed yet. I don't know where we will end up, but
So
it
don't
is
start advocating yet?
exactly. Yes,
Oh.
not yet. Give us a couple of weeks. But it's exciting to hear that that exists. We were struggling to come up with ways to fund this aspect, and I think this might be one we can think of. So anyway, okay. Any other reports? Anybody forgot? I always do that. Ms. Tressler, report from the superintendent's office.
Okay, well, superintendent's report will be very short tonight, but I do want to reflect about some safety and security issues that we had last week. And the hard work, the diligence, our community partners that supported us during some tough times. Friday around 8 o'clock, it was the fire alarm went off at Roosevelt, and you recall it was raining. And everybody went outside, and the fire department was called because that's what happens. And so the kids were out for about 30 minutes. And as you know, that building's going to be renovated beginning June 3rd. And so it's an older system, and the systems aren't talking. And so we're using a Firewatch now. And that even though the fire alarm had gone off, was it 2 days in a row? You all had kids there and who were out in the
We heard about it.
Yeah.
We heard about it at my house too.
The students were mannerly, they were respectful, and they did what they needed to do during a fire drill. Then several hours later, we were informed at Roosevelt about a potential situation with an individual. Johnstown Police was called. Johnstown Police heard about and knew after the details, decided that it was important enough and critical enough that we would have a secure the perimeter, which means school can go on as always inside the doors. It's not locked down where they're taking cover. It was having schools as usual inside the doors. But as soon as you change that focus, I know that students were letting their parents know sooner than we could get the message out. They're quicker than by the time we secure the perimeter. You probably all heard about it. And so create the community coming together and being concerned about our students, and also making sure that if any way they could help, they would help. Thank goodness we also had a lot of substitutes that day. And it shows diligence and what RHS admin has been able to train so that they were able to secure the perimeter quickly, efficiently. And within an hour, Johnstown Police had taken the individual into custody, and school went on as normal as it be for a Friday after securing the perimeter and a fire drill. So kudos to everyone who was involved with that. Then down here in Milliken, we had a day of not being able to use the water out of the water fountain and needing to boil water. And that was because of the professionalism of Don Stonebrink, who is in charge of the water, and realized with the flooding that there was some runoff that could potentially have some bacteria in it. And so until we could get that water tested, we were drinking bottled water, And the nutrition services was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and meat sandwiches and cereal and milk for meals. But we got through it. And families helped us with water. Walgreens in a Walgreens store in Greeley brought oodles of water bottles for us. And so I very much appreciate the community coming together in both cases to show that when there's a need, people will come and support us. So thank you very much. That pretty much concludes my superintendent's report, unless you want any clarifications regarding any of these safety security things.
I just have one question of safety and security is I'm assuming that all the staff know the different tiers of security, because I think that was the biggest message that I was getting from my high schooler is they should be. They're all very concerned with violence in school. So my high schooler was saying, are you sure that we're safe? Should we be getting out the boat? Should we be evacuating? And so I think with such a hurried day, so much activity, do they have a clear definition in the classrooms of what each tier of the safety?
Yes, they have, I don't want to call it a tablet or a binder.
Yeah.
But, excuse me? The protocols so that they're able to go through. Then some kids or some staff members need to hear it more. People are taken care of.
Yeah, I think that's the communication from Principal Ben and the help with John State's department, it was really good. And we did receive a letter, an email from Principal Benson and just clarifying. I thought it was well worded. It really helped everyone understand exactly what the situation was within the bounds that he's able to say. So I, as a parent, appreciate those communications afterwards to just understand their process when a situation like this arises. So I was grateful for that. I like those.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the communication was good, and watching it happen in real time was Karen and Tammy and I were together at negotiations. So we got to watch that process happen. It was pretty impressive. But I will say, I got a text from my daughter at Roosevelt before you got a call.
Right. They're fast.
So they are
They're
fast. Things going on. But the fire drill, 1,100 students and staff out of the building in under 2 minutes.
Yes,
It's pretty impressive. So they did a really good job.
in the rain.
In the rain.
Yeah, which they were not happy about.
No.
But it's got to happen.
And it wasn't a Colorado rain. It was rain hard.
Yeah.
So,
The only other thing I wanted to mention, because it just popped in the brain, because I also think on that same Friday, they had done the Parade of Champions, didn't they? Was it that
I
same
think
Friday?
may have been
Was it a
That
different
was the-
Friday?
the other
the
Friday.
previous Friday. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I was trying to leave it on a high note on
I
that
know.
day. I can't even get in anymore. Okay.
But that was cool. The Parade of Champions was cool.
Just
The
trying to figure out how to
previous
leave it high and moving on.
Okay. Mr. Evers, report from the CFO's office.
Thank you, Vice President Sano, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Trussler. Tonight, I just have a pretty brief update for the month of April. So through April, we've had 143.5 student contact days, which translates into 80.7% of our scheduled contact days for the year. Through April, we've received 58.5% of budget revenue. That breaks down to 85% of state sources, 30.7% in local sources, and 37.6% in federal sources. Through April, we've expended 73.4% of our general fund budget expenditures. We're within expectations for this point in the year. Definitely not a trajectory to overspend. And our schools range from a low of 70.9% of budget spend to a high of 76.8% of budget spend. And this concludes my CFO update. I can answer any questions the board may have.
I have questions. I have questions just because I didn't know how it went. So I'm going to leave it to you and see if you heard how it went. At the end of the legislative session, there were some bills floated about property taxes, because we're in that 2-year set window where the assessors are reassessing everybody's house and it's monies across the entire state. And there were some Senate bills introduced to decrease, how did they put it? Decrease the increase of property taxes coming in. And I didn't actually hear how that ended. Do you know if it passed at the end of the legislative session?
I don't know for certain. I believe they did. What the mechanism was basically to, I don't want to say disregard, but to take off, I believe it was like the first 50,000.
I think it was, I had heard 40 out of them, but I don't know if the schools, because there was 2 bills that were going, one with the schools and another one was with Title 32 special districts. I know the Title 32 special districts is 40,000, but I don't know if the schools was 50 or 40, because you take that off of your assessments.
Yeah, I mean, it comes right off the top.
Yeah.
To reduce your valuation.
Right.
So,
but you didn't hear whether that passed or not?
Yeah, I remember seeing it, but I don't.
I never heard the end of it, so I don't know if it passed or not, because I was trying to understand the impact on the decrease of the increase of property taxes, how silly as it sounds.
Doesn't the legislators have to approve it and then it has to go to a voter issue in November?
No.
No?
This,
Okay.
because it's taxpayer relief. So it's not, it's not an increase in the tax. So
Okay.
what the taxpayer relief was, I believe it was started by the governor's office, if I'm correct. Started by the governor's office because they believe there's going to be a proposition on the November ballot about this. So the governor's office created threw into the world of different bills to take your assessed value, and then you, off the top of your assessed value, if the house was $350, to take it down to $40,000 or $50,000 to $300, and then the property tax assessments and mills come off of that. Because across the entire state of Colorado, it was some ridiculous thing, like 40% increase in property taxes on average across the state.
Around that, yeah. It was.
And people, individuals, they were trying to provide some relief to individuals through property taxes. And how they were going to do it was to change the flip side, right? Because like my personal hat is I pay increased property taxes, and my school board hat is like, bring on the money, right? So it's very hard. So I was just curious if you had heard where that landed, because that was significant impact on our assessments coming through.
It'll definitely have an impact on the assessments. For our school district, there really isn't going to be that much of an impact for our local taxpayers, just simply because all of our mill levy override, and our debt is denominated in dollars. So this fall, when we're going to be certifying our mills, I'm defining against a stable amount of dollars. And so now if our mill levies, if our property taxes were expressed in mill levies,
right,
then there would be an increase. But ours are expressed in dollars, so our taxpayers will actually see a reduction in the number of mills, but probably relatively stable amount of dollars that they'll need to pay.
So it'd be another essential decrease to the residents, like we saw this past year. It could potentially be, I guess. I shouldn't say it is, because no one knows until we get the assessments in August.
Yeah, I'm assuming that our assessed valuation is gonna go up.
Which will pull the mills
down.
down.
It's with residential. Residential, it's a big part, but it's taxed at the lowest. It's assessed at the lowest rate. It's like they just changed it, 6.6 something. So that's there's a lot of value out there, but it's assessed at a very low rate, as opposed to like our oil and gas, which there's a significant amount of gas out there, but it's assessed at about a 75%.
Got it.
So I'm very sure we will see an uptick, but just because it's in residential,
Okay.
It'll be more muted than an increase in oil and gas values.
Okay. Thank you. That was my only
Other
question.
questions?
It's more of a teacher question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evers.
Thank you.
We will move on to our consent agenda. I get to read this fun little thing. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure for a consent agenda listing several items for approval by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of the board member. So with that,
I'm going to, you want to try? You go ahead.
I will motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
a motion by Director Johnson and a second by Director. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Our consent agenda is approved. Do we need a recess? It's on the agenda, so.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, move on to old business. We have some policy amendments.
And Vice President Sassano and members of the board, Mrs. Miller has worked with policy revision JLC and JLCD regulations. Mrs. Miller, have you had any other conversations, concerns?
Not.
Okay, we are ready to move forward to officially adopt this revision.
What is the will of the board?
Any questions before I motion? I don't have any questions before I motion. All right, I'll just motion and make it better clear. I'm going to motion to adopt the amendments to policy JLC and JLCD-R, administering medications to students.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do this officially. Jessica, will you please pull the board?
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Amanda Proctor,
Yes.
Nate Sassano,
Yes. Okay. I didn't ask for a discussion on the motion. Should have said something.
Any discussion?
We're giving this a mulligan.
Lots of grace. given to you. All right. Moving on, special business. We
Okay.
have a boundary
On the
change.
boundary change effective for 2023, 2024, we have talked about this for several months at board meetings. And actually, the Long Range Facility Task Force has been working on it for almost a year. After Elwell opened at almost full capacity, we knew that we needed to analyze and make some changes. And Mrs. Kramer's been one of the leaders on the Long Range Facility Task Force. And will you give us a kind of an overview and summary of the findings?
Absolutely. Good evening, Vice President Sassano, members of the board, and Superintendent Tressler. Basically, the Long Range Planning Committee discussed the fact, along with Shannon Bingham, our demographer that we've been working, that the expected growth and available seats at Elwell have now reached a point where we need to really consider making an adjusted boundary. The district is proposing that students who live east of Telep transition to Pioneer Ridge for the 23-24 school year. This would allow the district to use this that has and delay constructing new facilities until we are more able to support them, as you all know. Pioneer Ridge is a great school, wonderful programs there. As Vice President Sassano mentioned earlier, the big issue is the playground, and we're working on that. So we're going to get a new one of these days. And students who live in this area affected by this boundary change would be transported, would have the availability of bus transportation to Pioneer Ridge.
So what we did after the Long Range Facility Task Force presented this, and thank you, Mrs. Kramer, we reached out to the 99 families that are involved in this, come to a meeting or to follow up me if they had questions or concerns. And so we did have a face-to-face meeting at Pioneer Ridge with a good group of people. And then following that meeting, I reached out again to these families and said, say, if you couldn't make the meeting or if you have other questions, would you please let me know? And so parents contacted me and we talked through it. And some just wanted to know, let us know sooner than later. When you make the change, if I'm grandfathered in, can you do that sooner so that I don't have to keep putting out the open enrollment? We also sent out a survey to find out families who were in this area, if they are grandfathered, would they stay at LL by providing their own transportation, or would they go to Pioneer Ridge, their new home school, and have transportation by RE5J? So out of the 99 families, we had about 30% complete the survey, which a third isn't bad. And 56% said they would stay at Elwell and provide their own transportation. And 44% indicated that they would utilize the transportation by Pioneer Ridge. And that pretty well goes hand in hand with the parents that I talked to at meetings, the parents I talked to on the phone. And so it's not quite an even split, but it's close to it. And so following that, I met with Mr. Long with transportation, and we showed me where all his bus routes were in the area. He said, well, if we're taking, so they can do it in one route, but what we need, should you approve this, is that we will be reaching out to families again and saying, because I am posing we grandfather the families to remain at Elwell as long as they buy their own transportation. They need to register right away so we can know what we're going to be for transportation purposes. And so getting approval, then we will reach out from the district level and also at Elwell as to where these students will be attending next year. So given the information on enrollment process we've completed over this last semester, I am recommending the board approve this change in boundaries, which is pretty much straight down east of Telep, and also grandfather the families who are currently in this area if they provide their own transportation. Will we have a bubble here and the third grade is crowded wherever you are. So if depending on where it is, there will be some adjustments, and we will be able to, once we get students where families want them to be from these 99 families, then we will be able to also adjust staffing should we need to adjust some staffing. Questions?
I do have a question. In the packet with the recommended motion, it doesn't need to grandfather in anyone. You need to add that to our motion.
Yes, you do.
Just out of curiosity, what are the current enrollment numbers? LL and Pioneer Ridge. Do we have
We will
that?
get those soon.
I'm just wondering what the new boundary change, how that will shift our enrollment numbers.
Well, it'll also depend on what families are going to be doing. There is more room at Pioneer Ridge right now than there is at Elwell. Elwell can assume more growth because of the learning suite. Pioneer Ridge, though, when Mrs. Kramer was principal there, she had to 5 sections per grade level, depending on the grade level. So, Mrs. Kramer, when you were there, what was your high number there?
The highest one was 680. How much? 680
It
at
was
Pioneer Ridge.
ridiculous.
It was Mrs. Kramer and Noah was in principal.
So
And currently at Well, there's 620 students. That does include preschool, which was not included in the previous number at Pioneer Ridge that we're talking about because there's no preschool there. The current number at Pioneer Ridge, of course, without preschool because they don't have it, is 472. As of today.
As of today.
and that's current enrollment this year, not projected enrollment for next
That
year.
is today's enrollment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 9 families, do we know how many students?
127 students.
Affected by the change.
So,
If we're grandfathering current students at Elwell,
Mhm.
are are we also, because this came up last time, are we also gathering their siblings?
I am proposing grandfather the families.
Which
So
would
that would
include the
be
current
their
siblings.
sibling.
That's it.
Would this change for, I know we're looking at crystal ball, because we don't know because the enrollment forms aren't filled. But if all 127 students went to Pioneer Ridge, what was that number you just said? I'm sorry. It was 127 kids in these families, but what's Pioneer Ridge's current 472, right?
472.
So they'd be at just under 600. And
So it'd be
LL is it 30 including pre-K,
620 including pre-K.
and all of them, right, they'd be at 500. So the other piece we haven't talked about, because we're not done, I guess we have 80 or so kids from Milliken going to PR. That would
Approximately.
rather go, their families probably rather have them go to MEN. So at some point, we're gonna have to talk about shifting.
You're gonna
that
be
boundary
doing
too.
that as well, shifting some as well in another couple of years.
So point is, for those that might listen to this later, this conversation is not done. We're gonna be shifting boundaries and rules for a while until this growth at least levels off. So just so we all know, so the public knows, this is not the last time we're gonna talk boundaries in the next few years. So.
Well, yeah,
For what
there's just so much development going on in Johnstown that we're gonna have to talk about it for sure.
It's fluid, and it's not projected that it slows down in the next, what was our projection? 5 years. We had a 5-year growth projection. So I almost feel like this has to be a fluid conversation so that all schools are evenly balanced. Which I know is hard. It's hard for families to have boundaries change. I do like the fact that we can grandfather them in as needed. So I feel like it's a good compromise between trying to have an even number of kids at our schools and also trying to accommodate families that really do currently want to remain at their school that they have been in. So.
And families were, for the most part, very understanding. We went through some challenging conversations this time last year. And as a board, you said, I know that we made we decided to move forward with not changing the boundaries because these students were told that they would go to Elwell and that other students were shifted. And we've made an adjustment, or I'm proposing adjustment. And as you said, it's fluid. We will continue to adjust as needed. But families are understanding and they're either working it out. They know that Pioneer Ridge is a wonderful school. Just want their children to go and have a tour of the school sooner than later. And other families who want to remain at Elwell have already figured out how they're going to provide their own transportation. And Mr. Long, I know, will figure out how he's going to bus and take kids where they need to be safely.
One last question on the administrative of grandfathering in families administratively for like the staff, and like how do you keep track of student A, B, and C being grandfathered and their siblings are grandfathered and who knows, right?
It'll be done.
How hard is that for
Not
the
hard,
staff?
not with IC.
Just wanted to make sure it didn't
Just
create, I wasn't
remember I
adding
said
another
that.
word.
Get it in writing, Nate.
Kara, this is gonna be easy. You remember. One of those families we talked to asked us to give them a year's notice when we're gonna change boundaries. I don't know how full that's always gonna be, but as we look to have this conversation down the road, the more time we can give families to prepare for this kind of change, I think will be really, really important. Somebody said they know they're all good schools.
Right,
But-
but it's still a
It's
change.
change.
And
Yeah.
the one family that we talked to, they said, look, my children have gone through COVID, so we homeschooled. And before that, we had just changed the school. This is their fourth school. This is tough. And they are going to be in good hands.
Is there some sort of like welcome t-shirt we can give the new kids to maybe ease that transition?
Well, I can tell you that at Pioneer Ridge, they'll make them feel welcome. So.
They have a newcomer club anyway.
Oh,
So
that's
any of
nice.
the newcomers that come to the Bay have been plus.
Oh, that is actually nice. It's a good transition.
And the other thing I would say, for us to remember, is we always have school of choice as an option. So if you go to Elwell and you don't live in that boundary, you can as long as there's space. And I think as long as we've lived here, we've never said no. Maybe when Pioneer Ridge was a 680 split, that's a lot for Pioneer Ridge.
Yep, at that, yes.
yeah.
We definitely-
So not very often do we say no to a school of choice request. So just for us to keep that in mind. Okay. Other questions, thoughts, concerns, boundary change?
Well, I think the room also, or the lack of people in the room also shows the public's trust in the boundary change as well. Because I know not every boundary change has an empty room attached to it and zero public comment. And so I think that says a lot to the board. We're going into Elwell, right, saying, oh, we're probably going to have to change this, and doing long range task force and having us seed out information. And then your willingness to talk to people at night and when it was convenient for them, I think efforts really do showcase the trust people are giving us in this boundary change for 127, because not one parent even emailed the board like the listen RE5J one. Like, there wasn't even one email about that.
I think what we heard at that meeting is they just know. They want to know and know sooner rather than later. So it makes some plans for whatever they need to do.
Feel comfortable. I move to approve the proposed boundary change to Elwell and Pioneer Ridge School effective for 2020-2024 school year, and to grandfather the current families in this transition age.
If they provide their own.
If they provide on transportation, thank you.
I will second.
Any discussion? Motion. This is the problem. We discuss motion before we make the motion. So, Joe, would you please pull the board?
Monica Chung,
Yes.
Amanda Proctor,
Yes.
Yes. Nice. We officially reached the boundary. We'll move on to new business. We have some more parliaments.
Yes, Vice President Cisano, members of the board, Ms. Miller is here tonight to talk to you the need to a policy amendment JLCGC, the medical necessary treatment in school setting, along with the regulation. So she can provide you some background information, and then our next meeting we can vote on it. So Mrs.
Vice President Cisano, Superintendent Trustler. The necessary policy needs to by the end of June in compliance with CDE, and it would allow for medically necessary treatments that is recommended or ordered by licensed healthcare professional to also include behavior board analysts and individuals who provide services to students who have autism. This policy is going to be a little complex for the district. An IT team and 504 team will have to come together and agree outside providers making that recommendation for service to be provided into a meeting with the families, and that there will have to be a team decision with full school models and outside providers into the building.
So, oh, go ahead.
Okay.
So, just in layman's terms, this policy would allow their primary care doctor or someone of that sort to come into the schools to give medical treatment. Is that correct, or do I have it completely off?
So the law really came into effect with since we have behavioral needs in mind. So that's when we're going to attach it into your CDA support, behavior by court supports. And we do have private duty nurses that come in buildings. So it's going to have to be a very delicate process that IEP and medical teams go through to deem that service medically necessary for the student to have access to knowledge. Not necessarily their.
I need a really like boring vanilla example.
So
Because I'm still trying to like understand like a practical application of it. I just need a boring vanilla
yeah,
example.
absolutely. So for example, some students, they will have a recommendation or prescription, say, for 15 hours or 25 hours of behavior therapy services. That's a pretty extensive amount of behavior services. For those students, we do in school district that are missing 2 days of school, because they're going to access at least 16 hours of outside. Should an IEP team and those type of providers come together and deem that these services are medically necessary for the student to be able to access their general education environment, then the district would have to come together, the outside provider and the family, to create a contract essentially, so they're able to come in and provide.
Is that vanilla enough?
Need like a kindergarten. So what, and part of it is I've been very blessed in my life not to have to deal with this, right? So I can't even like, I'm trying to practically bring it down. What kind of behavior services are we talking about? Like, I just don't even understand. Just trying to like break it down in my head. I don't even understand what those would be. What would be a couple examples of behavior services? Like, all I can think of is playgroup, and that's like not even what you're talking about.
Correct.
In a different settings, so if you go to applied behavior therapy, so ABA therapies, they will do playgroup therapy. Students who have those needs in order to increase their engagement with one another. If that is something that's medically necessary by the IEP team, by the full team, then the district will have to allow those services at site. I don't know if that's a very clear example.
Medically, the term medically.
I mean,
That's
you're
what it
saying
is.
medically very
Yeah.
deliberate and all these, and I get that. I'm gonna jump in before you're done. When I go down to the cross-reference section, and it talks about medical marijuana. I'm like, this is weird to me. I'm trying to just understand how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together, and it sounds like you are trying to as well. But where does that come into behavior therapy, I guess?
And specifically to the medical model.
Yeah, because I felt like that was an interesting cross-reference that goes into this regulation.
It is an interesting cross-reference. Should a Colorado licensed healthcare provider deem that a student is prescribed that and needs it throughout the school day in order to access, so then the IEP team would come together and it would have to be read that as well in order to determine that it's medically necessary. The district would then be obligated to provide that.
To have that nurse come in to provide those medical necessary. Okay. All right. Quick thing, we have time for my brain to think about this, so you go ahead.
I don't have questions. I guess the one question, we have to adopt this policy by state
Correct.
statute, right?
Yeah.
This is not, and we don't get to choose this
Right.
one, so.
So we can Mrs. Miller can see about any other examples and share those with you.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious more of like what that would look like. Because all I'm trying to think of like in my head is like, all right, well, if you're doing playgroup, because that's the only thing I can think of is playgroup. If you're doing playgroup and it's medically necessary for these students, and we have to write a space for them. And now are we using the WUSA room for the group because it's medically necessary? Like, I'm just trying to like piece together pieces, and I know that's not maybe necessarily my job. It's the building administrator's job to do that. I also feel like it's my duty to think about like, how do we accommodate the space needs?
We would figure it out.
And historically, the outside therapies have not provided during the school day. So that's one of the things that's different about this policy. So I appreciate all the thinking that you're putting into it, because it's going to cause some logistical challenges. And typically we don't want students to miss their instructional time, and so the therapies are outside of the school day. But this is a policy that
is required, so.
Right, yeah, understand.
Other questions or discussion? This is a first read. You don't have to take action tonight. We'll see if the public has thought. Yes. Can we even change it if public input? We really
No.
can't, can we?
We can take it under consideration and move
See
on.
where it goes. Okay.
So just one last question, to deem it medically necessary, what's the procedure for something to be deemed medically necessary?
So the team, either before IPP, would have to make that determination based on the data that they have. And it truly has to be an impact for education, that without this service, they're not able to access. So that is not clearly defined like we would like it, and it's going to be very individualized.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Miller, appreciate it. Do we have citizens' comments on general topics?
No, we do not.
Okay. We do need to have an executive session to discuss JMA negotiations, so I get to read this. All right. Pursuant to section 24-6-2, 4E, either L or I, I'm not sure, I forgot my glasses, of the Colorado Revised Statute for purposes of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and ensuing negotiators regarding the master agreement with the Johnstown Millikan Education Association, and pursuant to section 24-6-4, 4E3, the Colorado Revised Statutes for purpose of developing the strategy of the school district for negotiations relating to collective bargaining with the Johnstown Millikan Education Association, we will enter into an executive session.
You
So-
motion that, right? Is that a motion? Say you motion that.
I make that motion. So
Second.
moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I think, are we going upstairs or are we staying here?
We can stay here, but need to go.
Turn the recording off. Then.
Yep.
Shut the recording off.
And then we'll come back to adjourn the meeting if anybody's watching.
And what we've done in the past, it's just turned off and then we'll see in the notes that we've adjourned the meeting when we come back in.
For my OCD, I was hoping we could do